So, hi and welcome back. So, the conclusion we made on the previous video puts us in a position to use the theory we've discussed in this chapter, as well as the previous chapter, to answer questions associated with the stylized facts that were considered in the beginning of the course in chapter 10. So, suppose we observe an economy with a high growth rate of output per worker over some period of time. Our theory that we have discussed in this chapter and the previous one implies this fast growth may basically come uh, from two sources. So one, it may reflect a high rate of technological progress under a balanced growth. And two, it may reflect instead the adjustment of capital per effective work. So if we ask that, can we tell how much of growth comes from one source and how much comes from the other? The answer would be yes. So if high growth reflects a high balanced growth, output per worker should be growing at the same rate, at a rate equals to the rate of technological progress. But if high growth reflects instead the adjustment of a high level of capital per effective work, this adjustment should be reflected in a growth rate of output per worker that exceeds the rate of technological progress. And the first one is shown by the table 10.8 here. I mean 10.1 here, as shown. The difference between table 10.1 and table 12.2 is that table 12.2 looks at the growth rate of output per worker, while table 10.1, which was focusing on the standard of living, looks at the growth rate of output per person. So the table 12.2 leads us to two conclusions. So firstly, growth since 1985 has come from technological progress and not usually high capital accumulation. So these conclusions follows from the fact that in all four countries, the growth rate of output per worker, which is shown in this column 1, has been roughly equal to the rate of technological progress that is shown by column 2. This is what we would expect when countries are growing along their balanced growth path. Okay, we also need to note what this conclusion does not say. So it does not say the capital accumulation was irrelevant. So capital accumulation was such as to allow these countries to maintain a roughly constant ratio of output to capital to achieve a balanced growth. So what it basically says is that over the period, growth did not come from an unusual increase in capital accumulation. The second conclusion is that convergence of output per worker between the United States and the other three countries comes from the high technological progress rather than from the faster capital accumulation. So for instance, France, Japan, and the United States, that is France, Japan, and the United Kingdom rather, all started behind the United States in 1985. But in all three countries, the rate of technological progress here, as shown, this one and this one, as well as that one, has been higher than that of the United States, shown here. Here, we can put a red to emphasize it. Okay, so this is a very important conclusion. And from it, one can think in general of two sources of convergence between countries. So one, poor countries are poor because they have less capital to begin with. So over time, they accumulate capital faster than the others, generating convergence. The second point is that poor countries are poor because they are less technologically advanced than the others. Therefore, over time, they become more sophisticated, either by importing technology from advanced countries or developing their own. So, as technological progress levels converge, so does the output per capita or output per worker in this case. So, the conclusion we can draw from table 12.2 is that in the case of rich countries, the more important source of conversions is the is in this case is clearly technological progress, or the second conclusion we made. So if you may recall, in chapter 1 we looked specifically at the high rate of growth in China. So this raises again the same question as those we just discussed. That is, do these high growth rates of China reflect fast technological progress, or do they reflect unusually high capital accumulation? So table 12.3 here gives the average rate of growth given by GY, the average rate of growth of output per worker given by GY minus GN, and the average growth rate of technological progress given by GA from the periods of 1978 to 1995 and 1995 to 2007. So this table basically yields two conclusions. So one is that from the late 1970s to the mid 1990s, as shown by this first row, the rate of technological progress was close to the rate of growth of output per worker. China was roughly on a rapid balanced growth path. So since 1995, however, while growth of output per worker has remained very high, the contribution of technological progress has decreased. Or we can put this differently by saying, more recently, growth in China has come partly from unusually high capital accumulation, from an increase in ratio of capital to output. So if we can look at this in another way, recall from table 12.1 that under the balanced growth rate, growth of capital is equals to the growth of output, and as well as the growth of effective work. So to see what investment rate would be required if China had balanced growth, we go back to equation 12.3 and divide both sides by y, as we have shown here. So if we plug in the numbers for China for the period of 1995 to 2007, we can actually get the actual average ratio of investment of output for that period. And a replica of that is shown in page 321 of the book. Okay, let's conclude. So the conclusion we can make from what we've learned is that when the economy is in steady state, it is considered to be on a balanced growth path. 2, output, capital, and effective labor are growing at the same rate or in balance at steady state. Economic or output growth in steady state is not dependent on savings rate. Savings rate affects the steady state output per effective worker. Increase in savings rate will lead to temporary increase in steady state output per effective worker. And we've also seen in the previous video that technological progress depends on the fertility of research and development, and appropriability of research and development. So patent laws must balance the need to safeguard and stimulate research and development, and at the same time they need to make the research and development accessible to firms in general. So the leading Western countries have experienced a balanced growth post the Second World War, particularly since 1950. All right, so we've come to the end of chapter 12, which we're looking at technological progress. In the next video, we'll start with chapter 13, where we look at technological progress in the short, the medium, and the long run. All right, thank you.